All right, I'm gonna go ahead and dive into the material. I want to welcome you guys back. I remember you from one of my other workshops. Welcome. Today, so today we're going to be focusing on stress management and how to release work and life and personal stress. So the main thing is that to recognize that we can't necessarily get rid of stress, and that's not the goal. The goal, because stress is always present in our life, it's how to learn to get through it and manage it better. For some reason my arrows are not work. Okay, there we go. So my name is Melina Sardar, and this is the third workshop I have the opportunity to teach for the Santa Barbara County Workforce Division. And I'm excited to be back and share some of this knowledge with you. I know for me, when I learned how to manage my stress better, it was definitely a game changer in my life because I didn't have any, almost no coping techniques. Probably the only thing I knew to do when I was younger, I was a smoker. So that's pretty much all I did to manage my stress. So I've been doing this kind of work for about 20 years, 22 actually, going into 22 years. Worked for city government as well as especially in the workforce division. I did a lot of this training for job seekers who were planning on getting back into the workforce, especially in the 2008 fall in our economy when a lot of people lost their jobs. I worked um, very closely with individuals to help them to get back into the workforce. So my commitment really is to motivate and teach and provide information that's going to add value for people. Uh, I'll just briefly, my background, I have a master's degree in psychology. I studied to be a marriage and family therapist. Although I finished all my hours, I decided to go and get additional certifications to become a professional life coach. I didn't want to go down the route of becoming a licensed therapist. So, and since 2003, I have been operating my own coaching practice. Now everything is on Zoom, of course. And in 2016, I extended my business and I started doing customized trainings for businesses with an emphasis on emotional intelligence because that played a huge role in my life. Enhancing my emotional intelligence level allowed me to, you know, be more successful and in my work and profession. So that's just a little bit background of who I am and what qualifies me to be here and teach you this course. The objectives really today is to understand stress and the effects. We all talk about, oh, I'm so stressed out, I'm so stressed out, but we don't, most of the time we don't realize what that really means and how it affects our physical well-being, our emotional well-being, even our spiritual well-being. So we're gonna dive into a little bit of that to gain a little bit more of a deeper understanding, and also how to manage our stress. Learn some coping techniques. I'm sure most of you are already applying some techniques to manage your stressors. I'm sure, especially after the pandemic and all the shifts that happen in all of our lives. So this may be just a reminder or a reinforcement for you. So I'm excited that you're here and present. Really, my invitation to those who are participating live here and those who may be watching this later, just really invite you to be here present with an open mind and see how this material can make a difference and add value for you. Our agreements to be fully present and participate. And if you have any questions, feel free to write them in the chat. I'll visit the chat once in a while. But if it's an urgent question you have about some of the material I'm sharing, just please use the functions on Zoom to raise your hand and I'll know that you have a question. So I would really want to invite you to listen to this presentation from a particular place. And what do I mean by listen? I mean, you're almost like, well, obviously I'm listening. But you know, most of us, when we listen through our own filters. And most of the time, we don't notice that we're doing so. So when information comes in, we either generalize the information, we distort the information, or we delete the information because we're like, oh, I don't need that information. So for some of you, you may have come here today or are listening from a place of, oh, I know how to manage my stress. I've been to many of these workshops. And that's great. In order for this to add maybe a new level of value for you, or add some more information to your information bank, I invite you to really listen from a particular place, and that's with your own life in mind, with some of the things that you're currently dealing with, or some of the things that you're interested in accomplishing. And specifically, since this session is about stress, to just focus on that. So something you're dealing with or something that you are interested in accomplishing. And I do ask for your participation. I'm not going to obviously make it mandatory, but is there anyone that's currently participating who would like to share one thing that you're dealing with or interested in accomplishing? You can go ahead and unmute yourself and share it. I'll give it a few seconds. Okay, that's okay. So just keep that in mind. Think about, okay, what am I right now dealing with? And what am I interested in accomplishing? I know for me, I have a medical procedure coming up, and that's like in my forefront, and it's something that I'm currently dealing with. And it is adding stress to my life because I don't know the outcome. I don't know, will I be safe in the hospital when I go through the procedure? So those are some of the things that is causing me stress at this point. So same thing for you. Just think about something that may be causing you stress, or something that you're interested in accomplishing. So let's talk a little bit about what is stress. Stress is a normal physical response to the events that make you feel threatened in some way. The best example I always use is being stuck in traffic, or having to drive somewhere and there's just a lot of traffic, or people driving really fast, that it just upsets your balance in some way. So since I've been on Zoom, I haven't really been doing much driving, but on Monday I had to do a training for a company, and it was I live in Los Angeles, so I had to drive to Long Beach, which is about it was a 50-minute drive from my house in the morning, and about an hour and a half drive coming back. So I hadn't been driving that long. So you bet by the time I got home, I was so exhausted, because just fast drivers, crazy drivers, people flipped me off because I was kind of going, the speed limit. Anyway, so it was like quite an experience. But I always say, stress is really a response to stressors, such as anything that's going on, any environmental condition, demands that are placed upon us, deadlines or pressures at work, and so forth. Now, one thing that I learned the hard way is that stress is dangerous when it is too intense and too prolonged. And when we don't do anything about it, it does affect us. And I'll share some of my own personal experiences with you in just a little bit. So workplace stress, we can't escape workplace stress. It's like we spend more of our time at work than at home. We deal with our coworkers and demands that are placed upon us. So it's really important to pay attention to how work is causing us stress, especially since it's something that we have to do. We don't have much of a choice unless we're at that time where we're going to be retiring and focusing on other things. So a quarter of employees view their jobs as the number one stressor in their lives. And this is just based on some research that I looked at. And the evidence also suggests that stress is a major cause of turnover in organizations. So we're going to take a little bit look at that and see how do we learn to take personal responsibility and manage our own stressors, because it's easy to blame, it's easy to point fingers. I know I did that for a long time in my early 20s when I first was entering the workforce. Even in my growing up, since I didn't have any coping techniques, it was just easy to blame my family, blame the external environment, and so forth. So let's take a look at like response to stress. So this is based on some studies that Dr. Hans Selye has done. I like to use his explanation of stress because it's easy to understand and it's applicable. So, regardless of the source of your stress, your body will react in three stages. The first stage, always when we're experiencing a stressful situation, is the alarm stage. And then resistance stage follows, and then exhaustion stage follows. So, what does this look like? Alarm stage is when a threat is first perceived. A hormone called adrenaline is being released into your body. And our adrenaline gland is right back here. And sometimes I actually even feel like my adrenaline gland just ticking and releasing this hormone, especially when I'm in a very heightened stressful situation. So it's not nothing we can control. It's happening to our body the moment we experience a stressful situation. And this is all that was happening to our body. Our hands sweat, our pupils dilate, there's increase in heartbeat and blood sugar levels. Your body automatically goes into fight and flight mode. And fight and flight mode is basically survival. It's kind of like, if you can imagine, you know, cave people time, the primitive times. If a lion would attack, we only knew two responses: one, to fight the lion, or run away from the lion. So now we don't have lions attacking us, but we do have overload of information and a lot of stress, a lot of stress in our lives. So to manage it, we go into initially we go into that alarm, that stage where we're fighting or flighting, which after a long time of being in fight flight, it's there's wear and tear happens in our body. So another thing that happens in this stage is our breathing, digestion, heart rate, and muscular tensions are all involved. And like the traffic example I gave you, this is very common when you're driving. So I just to kind of understand how this is applicable in our life. You're driving and a car is speeding really fast behind you, and you go, right? That's alarm stage. And it honestly, it happened to me several times on Monday during my drive, where I would see the car behind me like speed up, and automatically I if I was driving with one hand, I put my second hand on, because I was like, I got to be able to maneuver around this. Now what happens is this: the cars don't hit you, thank God. But even though the immediate threat passes, you are still not fully relaxed. You're not like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna chill and drive and not pay. You're a little bit more alert, and so you're using more of your energy to maintain this stage, the resistance stage, because you're resisting the stress that you're already experiencing because of the initial threat. So you use a lot more of your energy. Your body tries to protect itself to neutralize the stress by using coping techniques. So at that moment, if you don't have access or cannot do any of your usual coping techniques that you do when you're stressed, you're unable to relax. And so then you reach to exhaustion stage. An exhaustion stage is when your adaptive energy of your body becomes exhausted because of constant exposures of stress. Wear and tear will begin to set in, which may result in symptoms such as chronic headaches, heart irregularity, fatigue, depression, exhaustion, illness, and which sometimes these things lead to death. So stress and learning how to manage our stress is crucial. I know in some of my other workshops, I shared some personal stuff that happened and how I ended up in the hospital with a massive panic attack because I was refusing to pay attention to the stressors in my life. And I'll share that in a little bit. So we basically, why is learning how to manage our stress important? Is because we want to avoid getting to this stage, and have enough coping techniques to be able to manage it. So, what are signs of burnout for us when we have loss of interest, when the things that interested us before, we were excited to go garden, or we were excited to put on some fun music and move to it, we don't care anymore. We like to read books maybe. When there's lack of emotion, you're resigned in a way. Loss of motivation for things that you used to do, and also possible depression. I'm not talking about clinical depression necessarily, but going into a depressive state. That's what I'm referring to here. So, stress management, it is impossible to experience a work life balance without managing our stress. Because if we don't have any tools to apply and cope with it, we're going to be burned out and we lose that balance in our life. Stress is unavoidable. So, sometimes I get people who say, oh, no, I don't have any stressors. And it's not that I don't believe them. It's just that they may not be aware of what are some things that are causing them stress. And this is usually my clients that I work with individually, which clearly there's some signs of stress. They're just not able to identify it. So if we don't handle um, our stress, it can lead to physical and psychological damage. And that's why it's important to learn to manage it. And I'm excited that you guys are here. And those of you that are watching, I really hope that moving forward, whatever I have to share is going to add some value for you. So let's look at some stressors in our life. We have job stress, we have family stress, and we have personal stress, as well as financial stress. So one thing I'll invite you to do, I did write in the chat, if you can just grab a piece of paper. And as we're kind of looking at these stressors, it's really helpful if you can just write down some of the things that you're recognizing that could possibly be stressors in your life right now, currently. Okay, so let's take a look at um, job stress. Changes that you're dealing with due to COVID, changes in your routine, inadequate training, deadlines that you have to meet, excessive workload, public speaking and presentations for if that's required for your job, pressures, gossiping at work, difficult coworkers or boss. I know we all have one of those in our offices. Difficult customers or clients, and poor match between job demands and capabilities of workers. So sometimes maybe you're not getting any adequate training, and so those can be part of our job stressors. So as you're seeing this list, go ahead and just pick one or several of them that you're like, yep, that's happening for me. I have those things going on in my life. Again, the reason why we're doing this is because we want to increase your awareness about what is currently causing you stress. Okay. So I know for me, I had to close my office when COVID hit. There was a lot of change in my routine. The way I was doing things changed, just like it did for everybody almost. And I started getting a lot more clients, which was a positive thing, but it was also causing stress. So it's just important to be able to recognize what are our stressors. Let's take a look at some family stress. So family stressors can be illness or injury in the family, death or disability, marital difficulties, divorce or remarriage, problems with children, aging parents, lack of privacy. Being, especially with COVID, I had a lot of clients who now everybody was at home, everybody had to deal with each other. They had to see each other for, longer hours than they ever did. So, and that was causing a lot of stress for a lot of the people I encountered. Being a single parent, maybe there's an addition, there's a birth, child leaving home, spouse having a new job, and maybe not having your own, a family of your own. So this can be some of your contributing to some of your family stressors. Again, same idea. Go, pick one or several, and if there is something that's not on this list, go ahead and add it for yourself. Say, yeah, this is what's going on with my family, and it's something that I'm dealing with. I know for me, earlier I mentioned that how I ended up in the hospital at the ER with a massive panic attack because back in 2012, I think it was, my dad was diagnosed with colon cancer. And I have a very close relationship with my dad. And so clearly I was devastated. And I was also in the denial of the effects of that injury or illness on me. And so I was continuing with my daily routines. I was working my 10-hour days that's when I used to work for the city of Glendale. And then I would go to my practice and have my client see my clients, get home around 10. Then I would like binge watch Netflix, and then sleep for maybe 3 hours and then get up and continue that routine. And after a few months of doing that, um, it was a Sunday evening where I felt literally like this extreme heavy feeling on my heart, and I thought, oh my god, I'm having a heart attack. And I literally got in the car, drove myself to the ER, and I walked in and I said, I think I'm having a heart attack. And they did all the tests that they do, and um, the doctor came and said everything, all your tests came back fine, there's nothing. And he goes, I think this must have been a panic attack or some sort of a anxiety attack. And I said, oh, okay, that's strange. And he asked me, he said, is there anything going on in your life right now, like something that's causing you stress? And I was like, no, not really. I was so in denial. And then he's like, really? Like, and then he broke it down. He's like, any changes in your life, anything new that has happened that you're dealing with, any illnesses and I was like, oh yeah, my dad was, he's going through chemo. And then he's like, okay, and that's what's going on. And it hit me, and I remembered my own presentation. I'm like, wow, I am so in denial that I almost didn't want to accept it, right? So that's how stress, and that's how these things creep up on us. We don't we get so caught up in our routine that we don't realize that some of these things that are going on in our life are contributing to our continuous stress. So basically, after that realization, I had to make massive shifts in my life because I didn't want to end up in the ER again with an anxiety attack, actually a panic attack. So some of the other stressors that we could be experiencing are personal stressors, such as aging, feeling unattractive, illness, lack of social support network. If you deal with diets and weight loss, lack of personal space, no time for self, kind of being at a point in your life where you feel like you haven't really achieved much and that you would have liked to achieve more, lack of success, continuing education, relationship issues, and body issues. Like my brother right now, he's continuing his education to get his doctorate. And every time I talk to him, he's like, I don't know, I'm stressed. I can, because he has all these demands that are being placed on him, right? So those are some of our personal stressors that we're dealing with. And then there's financial stressors, and financial stressors can be anywhere from, loss of employment or reduced hours, having to pay for things that, you have to pay and maybe you don't bring in enough anymore. Credit card debt, no savings, no money for major purchases that you want to make. And just a general increase in the cost of living, having to pay child support or alimony and unexpected costs that rise. So these are all can be a part of our financial stressors. And when I was teaching this at the Verdugo Workforce Division for the clients, I mean, all of these were applicable for them because these were job seekers who had lost their job and they were coming into the center to be able to get back to work. So they were, constantly under a tremendous amount of stress. So let's take a look at, okay, what happens with us dealing with all these stressors. Oh, I like this. My doctor told me to avoid any unnecessary stress, so I didn't open his bill. I have to add humor to my day to deal with stressors. So I probably have some of these cartoons in this presentation. So let's take a look at some normal reactions to stress. And I want to emphasize on the word normal, because if you didn't have any of these reactions as a human being, then I would worry about you. So if you're having some of these reactions, it's totally normal. And again, it's just a matter of recognizing it. So our reactions to stress can be physical, emotional, cognitive, and behavioral. And it's never one or the other. It can be a combination of them all. So let's take a look at physical reactions to stress. Now, as I'm going through this, I invite you to do the same thing you were doing with the stressors, kind of identifying what stressors may be contributing, may be happening for you right now. Now, what I would like you to do as I'm going over the reactions is take a look at these reactions and say, yeah, that's kind of happening for me. Oh my God, I have had more muscle aches. So just, it's again, this is the awareness piece for all of us. It's like identifying, okay, what is really going on? How, if I'm not aware that I'm stressed, am I experiencing any of these reactions that could possibly be due to the stressors in my life? So just make a note for yourself. Again, you're not going to talk about this. This is for you to be able to gain more awareness. So physical reactions, feeling fatigued, frequent colds, inability to sleep or you want to sleep a lot, headaches or dizziness, nail biting, restlessness, muscle aches, rapid heartbeat, experiencing constipation or diarrhea, just frowning more, like not feeling like you have anything to be happy about, more accident prone. When I was talking to you about that moment in my life with my dad's situation, I actually passed 2 or 3 red lights during that period. And I didn't realize that I mean, I realized after I passed it, and it was because I was so not present that so that's what I mean by accident prone, that we drop things, or we pass red lights, or we get into accident, things happen that we're like, what happened? How did this happen? So that's because of a tremendous amount of stress that we may be dealing with. High blood pressure we can experience physically, and also irregular breathing, which is also a sign of experiencing like physical reactions to stress. All right. The next one is emotional reactions to stress. So we can be experiencing anxiety, which is what I was experiencing. And I'm not talking about clinical anxiety, nothing that like you have to get diagnosed for or anything. It's just anxiousness, anxious thoughts, and constantly connecting to a future that hasn't happened yet. And I always share what anxiety, how to really, we can on our own manage. Again, I'm not talking about clinical. I'm talking about just anxiousness that we create because of our thoughts. It's anxiousness is when we're in the present moment and we connect to a future that hasn't happened yet. And we go into this what if cycle. Oh, what if this and what if that? And what if, she doesn't make it? What if he does? What if something, and that, so the tension we create from this moment to that future moment is anxiousness. And so what is the remedy for that? And we hear this always in like the Eastern practices with yoga and all, it's about being in the moment. It's like how to be in the present moment and in the now, because that's when we won't experience any anxiousness. So some of the other emotional reactions is being moody, moodiness, having short temper, agitation, feeling overwhelmed, and that the sense that they are like you're falling apart. And you may even say it in when you're talking to people, like, "Oh, I just feel like everything's falling apart." So those are clues for you to be like, "Oh, okay, what's going on?" Sense of loneliness or isolation, depression or general unhappiness. And so I also talk about depression, how anxiety is when we connect to the future. Going into a depressive state, again, I'm not talking about clinical, is when we connect to a past and we say, man, I should have done this. And why did I not exercise more, and I'm 10 pounds heavier? Why didn't I do this? Why didn't I pursue education? It's when we connect to a past and that we can't change anymore, but that takes us into depressive states. And some other emotional reactions can be crying and worrying, and just experiencing fear and panic. So again, very important to be able to identify how we react emotionally to stress. I know for me, and this was true growing up, which wasn't allowed in my household, but I cried. Crying is my reaction to stress. And for many, many years when I was younger, I would judge myself, question it. I was told in my household, what are you crying about? What do you have that's missing in your life? You have everything we've provided. It was just like People at some part of the world have it worse off. So I looked at crying as negative and as weakness, because that's kind of was the message I got. But then I realized in my early 20s, when I started working on my own healing and growth, and I realized that that's just how I release my stressors. And so now, and since then, when I made that recognition, I just give myself permission. I don't question it. I don't have to reason for it. I just know that I need to do it to release some of the stress that I'm experiencing. So again, it's to identify some of these for you and say, and know that um, it's not like you're if you're agitated, that you're, have behavioral issues. It's just that could be some stressors that are going on that are causing you to show up like this. Cognitive, how does stress affect our thinking? Um, there's confusion, memory loss. It's like those moments where I'm sure, I mean, I've experienced it where I have to get on my computer really fast, and I put in my passcode, and I can't remember it. I'm like, I do it every day, but in a stressful situation, somehow just I lose my memory in that very moment, right? That's kind of how that shows up for us. Inability to concentrate. There's like loss of purpose, poor judgment. It's the worst time when we're stressed out, because we're in that fight flight mode. It's the worst time to make any major decisions. Okay. And that's why it's really important to just like sleep on it, work through it, and then make a decision that you need to make, especially if it's a big decision in your life. How else does stress affect our thinking? We're indecisive. We become rigid thinkers. We become black and white thinkers. We see only the negative. It's like, oh, nothing's working in my life. Everybody's against me. Nobody listens to me. Nobody understands me. It's that kind of those things that we do to ourselves. And that's just overload of stress. We go into that generalized thinking. We have poor problem solving. We have anxious or racing thoughts and constant worrying. So these are some of the cognitive reactions to stress. Again, I hope that as you're looking at some of these, you're like, yeah, that's kind of going on for me. Let me take a deeper look at it. Let's take a look at behavioral reactions to stress. By the way, what I want to acknowledge is, as we're going through this, sometimes in my live workshops with participants, by this point, people are like, oh my God, this is stressing me out more, because I'm realizing how stressed I am. And that could absolutely be the case. And the workshop is created like that by design, because it's really, if we really want to learn how to manage our stress, is to learn, understand what are the causes and how it affects our behavior, our emotional state, our cognitive state, and so forth. So if you're feeling overwhelmed or feeling more stressed right now, it's okay. We're going to talk about some coping techniques, and we're going to talk about with the awareness that you gain, then you're more in the place of power to manage your stress, versus feeling like helpless and that, oh, what's going on with me? Why is this happening to me? And like looking for answers outside of you, when in fact the answers could be inside of you. And so hopefully that this will allow you to take a look at inside and say, okay, what do I need to do? What are some things that I can shift, just like I had to do with my situation, so that I don't end up in the ER again. So behavioral reactions to stress are relationship conflict, angry outbursts, procrastinating or neglecting responsibility, using some sort of substance to relax or get away from the stressors, a sense of wanting to run away. I know a lot of people, they're like, I just want to get in my car and drive. I just want to move to a different state. I just want to, like, we just want to go, which is not usually rational. It's just because of the overload, we just want to escape. It's like that flight that we want to do. We're not able to relax. We smoke too much if you're a smoker. We blame others. eat more or less, or loss of appetite, you're more controlling, because there's so much that's going on that's out of your control. You become more controlling behaviorally and thinking, if I can control everybody in every situation, then I'm gonna be feel fine, which is really not the case. You create actually more conflict like that in your relationships. You become more demanding, go into denial, and you're impulsive. It's when we do impulsive things there, and that can cause more pain for us later. So, so hopefully by this point, as we went through this, you were able to identify at least one of your stressors, either in your personal life, family, or work, or financial, and you were able to look at some of these, and say, yeah, these are, some of these are going on for me, um, and you've put some notes in your paper, on your paper. Trying to, okay, there we go. So now what? Now that we're aware of all this, what do we do? So the key to stress management, or shifting any behavior as human beings, the first step always is awareness. How aware we are, and not being in denial, which is where most of us like to be, like just being in denial that, like, we have any control over what's happening to us. It's just easier to blame. But the thing that happens is, when we blame, nothing changes really. We just keep blaming the government, this person, parents, the past, whatever it may be, right? And I was notorious for being a blamer. I'm an immigrant to this country. I came when I was 13 years old. So I had to, learn a whole new language and blah, blah, blah. Right. I mean, everything, all the challenges that come with, being in a new space and having to recreate your life. And I would go into this helplessness mode, or this victim mode, where it was like I had no power. I had like, I couldn't control when I came to the States. I can, I didn't grow up with some of these people. I don't have any friends, long-term friends, and so forth. Like, I always use those as reasons for why I stayed where I was. And it wasn't until in my early 20s, where I had some major things happen, a near death experience, where I woke up. I basically woke up and said, okay, yeah, you're an immigrant. Yep, this happened. Yep, these traumas happened. But now what? What are you going to do? So awareness is the beginning of any shift. Next thing is solutions, choosing the right coping techniques for you. One thing that may work for me may not work for you. People tell me, oh, well, when I'm stressed, I get out and I run. Oh, well, good for you. I can't do that. That probably cause me more stress, because I'll have knee pain and back pain, and right. So what, every one of us has different solutions that are going to work for us, and I'll cover some of them, and hopefully you'll be able to take one of those solutions and apply it more, with more awareness and more consciousness, if you are interested in managing your stress better. And of course, the third thing is, we can be aware and we can have the solutions, but if we're not taking actions to make the necessary changes, nothing will shift, right? And it's about shifting behavior, and it's not easy. I don't sit here and say, oh, just shift your behavior. It's very challenging for humans to shift our behavior, because we're so set in our ways, and sometimes we are forced to shift it. Just like me, I was forced to adjust my work hours when during that time that I shared with you, when I ended up in the ER. It's like I had to tell myself, well, you can't sit in front of the TV and watch 3 hours of Netflix binge watching and then only get 3 hours of sleep. So I had to just cut TV out when I would get home. That would, and that increased my sleep to 6 hours. So, there were like things that were uncomfortable, but I had to do, because I didn't like how I felt with that panic attack. So, taking action is the next step. So I'm going to skip this, because it's usually, I've already asked you to do it, which is identify your stressors and your reactions. And now we're going to dive into solutions. And I like this. I got this off the internet. It's like, this is not a solution to deal with stress, where sometimes we feel like we just want to bang our head against the wall or against our desk. But unfortunately, that's not going to give us any solutions. So I'm going to talk about some stress reduction techniques. I am not going to share anything with you that you don't know. Like I've written here, it's common sense. All the stuff I'm going to share with you are common sense. But just because things are common sense doesn't necessarily mean that they're common practice. So, if we want to improve our stress management and learn how to cope with things better, it's to put some of these things that are common sense into practice. And that's the action, right? Taking action. So, again, you already may have some coping techniques that you are doing that's working for you, and that's great. Definitely continue. Now, if I share anything here that you want to incorporate into your stress management, wonderful, you can do that. Or if there is something that's here that you're not doing, but it's easy enough that you can start incorporating into your life, great. It's like to make the commitment of saying, okay, I'm going to do a little bit more of this to be able to manage my stress. I was watching the SB Awards, which is the awards they give to athletes. I don't know if I wasn't familiar with it. This was the first year I watched it, and there was a gentleman who came on. He had Down syndrome, and he was talking about how he had completed an Ironman, and he was getting an award for his accomplishment. And he said he was overweight when he started, and he had all these things that were working against him, and his coach told him to just be better, do 1% better every day. And I was really inspired by his story, because I know I have things that I struggle with. Like, I know that I need to exercise every day and all that. And sometimes it's like, oh, so it's like I've been applying that because I was so inspired by that. I've been applying that to me even. It's like, okay, can I just do 1% better every day? And then I'll probably be able to accomplish all the goals that I have. But I just need to like improve by 1%, improve by 1%. So I appreciated that message. It's probably something I needed to hear at that point, and I've been sharing it since that. So again, it's just about adding a little bit more to our day so that we can get the results we want, or to our week. So, I mean, it's no secret that exercising, any form of exercise, swimming, walking, tennis, anything that any running, anything that makes you move a little bit, because there's chemicals. I don't want to get scientific about this, but there are chemicals that are released into our body. You're probably hearing my dog, excuse me, but she's probably seeing something out there. So the, choosing something that is going to work for you. Um, Cutting down sugars and caffeine. Again, there's scientific reasons for that. How sugar and caffeine increase our anxiousness, our blood sugar levels, and so forth. So that if you already are an anxious person, it may be contributing to more of that. Now, some people tell me, "Are you kidding me? I can't cut out caffeine. That's gonna even cause more success." And that I get that. So again, these are not um, techniques that like it fits all. You choose what works for you. Getting enough sleep and avoiding the news and electronics at bedtime. There's a lot of studies now about the blue light, and how that keeps our brain awake for longer than it needs to be. So when people are on their phone at night or on an iPad, it affects our sleep patterns. There's, I mean, there's so many studies out there about sleep and how important it is. Huffington Post did a research, I don't know, a few years ago, I think it was, and they were talking about how women, uh, it's this study showed that women uh, need to sleep at least 8 hours and like 39 minutes or some, or 38 minutes, and men need like a 7.5 hour sleep. So I mean, for most people, when I share this research, they're like, what, who has 8 hours to sleep, right? And so if we only sleep 6 hours or 5 hours, then our body is not getting the again the rest that it needs. And so over time, it affects with our wear and tear and our stress levels. So again, something to be mindful of, and avoiding to watch the news. I'm sure you've heard this at some point. I mean, we already know what's on the news, right? Definitely never, um, positive stuff. It's mostly negative things, and it just affects us in a negative way. If we're watching it right before bedtime, what ends up happening is that we're giving these negative messages to our subconscious mind, and we're not resting because our subconscious mind starts processing all that information. So that's why it's important to give positive messages when we're sleeping, doing a gratitude journal. Me and my boyfriend, every night when we lay down before we're going to bed, we talk about things that we're grateful for. What happened today that I'm grateful for. And I honestly can vouch that my sleeping has been so much better because I naturally have anxiousness. And of course, when we lay down in bed, we go through our day and we start going, oh, and I didn't do that. Oh, I told myself I would do this and I didn't. And that actually increases our anxiety and we're unable to get the rest we need. Other stress reduction techniques is deep breathing. Again, it's something that it's practiced in the Eastern philosophy a lot, right? I mean, with yoga and meditation, why deep breathing is important. And most of us in the West, we don't take deep breaths. We actually have very shallow breaths. Sometimes I didn't even realize when I started focusing on deep breathing, I didn't realize how often I would be at my desk working on something and typing and typing at me. I'd be like, and I was like, oh my God, I had stopped breathing. Like, I wasn't even conscious of it. So that happens, especially when we have to, produce a, something for work, meet a deadline. We don't realize that we're not really taking deep breaths. So deep breathing is free, really, and we can do it anytime. It's just to make a conscious effort to do it. I have a alarm set on my phone because I honestly, if I don't put an alarm, just like I have, I set clients in my, in my phone, and it alerts me that there is a client coming up in 15 minutes, and I show up for my clients, right? So I treat taking deep breaths and some of these exercises just like things that I need to do during the day. So that has really supported me because I naturally am a shallow breather. And like I said, I've always dealt with anxiousness growing up. So this is something that has really supported me to manage my stress. Also, just like being involved in doing some physical activity, cleaning your room or car or gardening, things that you enjoy, being in nature really decreases your stress. Doing things that are relaxing for you, recreation, things that you enjoy. That could be hiking, it could be anything that you do to relax. It could be just putting on a nice song and listening to it, dancing to it. So again, um, like I mentioned, none of these are um, some of these things you don't even need money for. Sometimes when I talk, people are like, "Oh, I don't have money to go to the gym. Oh, I don't have money. I don't have time." And it's like, they're in reality is that some of these don't take really too much time. It's just a matter of us deciding and making a commitment to it, right? Avoiding hot button topics and avoiding people who stress you out. And sometimes that's family, right? I have it, I think, here. Um, you know, people, I always say, like, it's important to talk through stuff, talk to people like your support network, family. But sometimes people that I know, and it's true for me as well, it's like, I don't know, there's some family members I can't talk to. They'll probably add to my stressor. So yeah, then choose the people that you want to talk to, or join groups, meetups and things that are going to support you to create a kind of a tribe that is aligned with you, and you can have those conversations and connections with. um Turning off our phone is definitely a source of a huge stress. I have a lot of clients that, I mean, sometimes their entire session is on things that they watched on social media and the effects of it, what their friends posted, who liked it, their boyfriend didn't like their post. I mean, you name it. I hear it all. And sometimes just really turning off our phone. And I know it's difficult. It is difficult for me too. Like my work is related to my phone. I mean, I get messages from clients, and I have to text back and so forth. So it's really challenging. But I've also learned to just pull my phone away, and I started out literally with just 5 minutes not looking at my phone, 10 minutes. Now I'm about 25 minutes where I can put it away and not be worried about it. And at nights, I used to be on it all the time. I've cut that out because it wasn't supporting me. So again, finding what works for you. Self-care, doing things that are important for you. um like the other day, I had gotten this mask online, and I was gonna put it on. I was like, oh, I don't feel like it. I was like, no, do it. It was like something I could do for me. So again, sometimes we have to like force it, but doing things that are important for us, self-care, you know taking care of ourselves, doing things that are important for us. Counseling, life coaching, always talking to someone. If you don't have anybody around you, like talking to a professional, working through stuff. I know that has been a huge, that was the game changer for me in my 20s when I, started working with a therapist and worked through my stuff, because I didn't grow up with any coping techniques. We didn't talk about this stuff in my family. It was kind of like, well, deal with it, like get over it. That was kind of the environment, right? So I had to learn the hard way, in a way, to learn how to cope with things. So that's why I went into this profession myself, because I saw the effect it had on me, and what a game changer it was. I wanted to be that space, create that opportunity for other people. Paying more attention to you and not procrastinating what's important to you. Procrastination is huge. It's something that a lot of people struggle with. And I always like to use this analogy because it's kind of visual, and I am going to look silly, but that's okay. I'm going to get my point across with it. It's kind of like with doing stuff for you and paying attention to things that are important. It's kind of like if you're one of those people that makes lists of things that you need to do, right? And like likes it when you check it off. It's kind of, when we don't do it, this is what ends up happening. It's like you write something on your list, is one item on your list, and you put it in your mind that, oh, I have to take care of that. And then you say, oh, and then there's another thing I need to take care of. And then you put it in your mind. And there's another item. There's never just two things on the list. There's always more on. So we end up just like piling things up, right? And we say, oh, I'll get it done. Oh, I'll do it. And so we pile up another thing and another thing, right? I mean, you get the point, right? So what ends up happening, I mean, besides the fact that I look ridiculous, what else is going on? I'm overloaded, right? Like I'm just have all these things in my mind, and just because it's not in my forefront, or it's still weighing me down. And that's why taking care of things and doing things one at a time, it just allows you to take it off your list. And really what it really does is takes it off of your mind and gets things done. So that's why doing things that are important for you is important. um and then I talked a little bit about gratitude, how gratitude really equals great attitude. Most of the time, why we stress is because we're focused on what we don't have. Oh, I don't have this kind of body. I don't have this much money. I don't have this kind of partner. I don't have whatever we focus on, right? And that really puts us in a very negative state of mind. And our success in our life is to constantly doing our best to be in a more positive mental state, in a positive state of mind. And gratitude is what can get you there. Okay. And I have a gratitude journal always next to me. I got this off of Amazon, you know. It was like a few dollars. I mean, it was really nothing expensive. And I just write in it. Sometimes when I get into that funk and I'm like worried about things and what's not going right, that's why it's like right here on my desk. I just grab it because I want to immediately shift my thinking. So I write things in my gratitude journal. You don't need a journal, you just need a piece of paper, or you can just say it out loud. So again, I can't emphasize the power of gratitude and um and how it can truly support you to reduce your anxiousness, not clinical, but anxious states, uh, and bring it down. And learning to forgive, that's definitely been something that I have been practicing, because when I wasn't forgiving, I was always blaming and judging and being in a nasty space with myself and with people. And when I learned the art of forgiveness, and I do it through writing letters, I don't give the letters to those people, but I just write, like as if I'm communicating with those people that I need to forgive because they said something or they did something that hurt me. So that's something that I choose to practice so that I can manage my stressors more, because things affect me emotionally. And I know that we're reaching to the end of our topic today. Some unhealthy ways to deal with stress. It's just something to be mindful of. I know that I was a smoker since I was 14 until I was 23. And then after my near death experience, I quit smoking. So I haven't smoked in 20 some years. But, when I didn't have any other coping techniques, smoking was definitely how I dealt with it. It was my go to. um, and you know what I realized with smoking is that all I was really doing with my cigarettes, I was taking deep breaths. Because I mean, what do we do when we smoke? We go, right? And so I realized that, wow, like the tobacco industry, they knew exactly what they were doing with this substance. It's like the most natural thing that's important for us, which is breathing. They attach this substance to it, right? And so I know I've recommended this to clients who are smokers, is like, before you light up that cigarette, take a few deep breaths. And sometimes they've come back and said, after I took a few deep breaths, I only smoked half of my cigarette. Or some people I know, not my clients, but I also know people who have quit smoking because of that, because they wanted to. Other unhealthy ways to deal with stress is if we drink too much, overeat, or undereat, zone out for hours in front of TV, withdraw from friends and family, sleep too much, procrastinate, um, fill up every minute of our day to avoid facing problems, kind of being in denial, and taking our stress on other people. And uh, this is common, but it's unhealthy. It doesn't really release our stressors. It probably adds more to it. So, as I end my presentation, and one thing I'll just invite you to do is set a clear goal for yourself and declare it. Make that decision that, what, I want to reduce my stress, and I want to do a few things that are going to support me with that. And it could be things that you're still doing, continue to do that if it's working for you. And if it's not, maybe you can incorporate a couple of the things I mentioned: the breathing, the gratitude journal. Really, these things that are so easy to incorporate into your daily routine and your daily life, and write that goal down and just really focus on it, and make that commitment for yourself, because you deserve to feel better, and manage your stress better, because we really want to avoid being bombarded with stress and having to reach that exhaustion stage. We want to avoid as much as we can to not reach exhaustion stage, because that's not a good space to be. So with that, I thank you, those of you who were present here, and those of you who are going to watch this later. I am available to answer any questions. You can reach me with my information. My phone number is 818-517-0088. Feel free to send me a message, a text, or a call. or if you want to email me, you can email me at coachmel2020@gmail.com. With that, I end today, and I thank you, and I hope that this added value for you. Goodbye.